From Olympic City and the home of Pikes Peak, this is the Automotive ADHD Show. Oh yeah, here we are on the Automotive ADHD Show, rocking it, talking about cars, all sorts of good stuff. My name is Matt West, the host of this show, or at least that's what they keep telling me, so I'm gonna keep rolling with that there. I got a great show in the works for you, by the way. Last week's show was awesome. I had filmmaker Connor Hudson on to talk about his upcoming film, Backtracking the Ode to America's Racetracks, exploring, it's a film that explores abandoned racetracks and the history behind some racetracks here in Colorado, which is very, very cool. And very great show. If you missed it, it's going to be in your podcast feed. Find it wherever you download podcasts. And of course, I want to thank Connor again for joining me on the show. Very, very great interview. You gotta check it out. Now, this show is a lot of fun. If I sound a little more exhausted and tired than usual, well, maybe I don't. I just drank like 2 cups of coffee. So, no, I've had a long day doing some car stuff. Went to the junkyard with a bunch of friends. You know, you got a good group of friends when you all plan out a Saturday to all go to the junkyard. You get a whole list together. We all work together. We ripped apart like 5 cars, grabbed rear differentials, all sorts of stuff. And then I finished that and did some radio shows. You may know I do this show as a radio show in Southern Colorado, but I also work at a music station on the weekends, and I do a music show as well. So the voice is a little hoarse. I've done a lot of talking, but hey, you know, I can never stop talking about cars. I've always got energy in me to do more car stuff. It's almost a problem. Like I don't care how tired I am. If it's about cars, oh yeah, you'll get me fired up on it. So there we go. And now I do have some really cool stuff to talk about as well today. Like for instance, NASA might soon be putting their astronauts in Datsuns. Yeah, well, that's being rude. I guess I could call them Nissans, but Nissan is working on the next lunar vehicle. This is interesting. Also, I'm going to talk about the best time to fill up your gas tank. That's going to be really interesting. Porsche is also working on some e-fuels, so going to do a segment a little bit on just gasoline, fuels, things like that. I mean, those gas prices have been going up, especially here in the States. They have been getting pricey. I saw premium, by the way, cross the $5 mark here in Colorado, which I know those of you in California are like, oh, $5? I wish it was $5. It's like $7 or $8 there now, which is mind-blowing. But it's getting higher here too. It's getting higher everywhere. Going to talk about that. Also, the automotive chip shortage has finally killed the most useless automotive feature, and I am glad. I'm glad. We're going to be talking about that. And of course, your car sounds. I got more car sounds in. You sent them into the show. Going to play them right here. Now, ladies, gentlemen, Ferrari 308s. So before we talk about NASA, I want to hit on this real quick. I saw this. A new survey says 61% of drivers admit that someone else notices that they're having car trouble before they themselves notice the car problem. I don't know if that's ever happened to you. For me, I'm pretty aware. I'm a car guy. I'm an enthusiast. I'm pretty aware of what's going on with my car. Though the one thing I have been guilty of this has happened to me once. Maybe a little embarrassing, but I had a flat tire on a Mustang I was driving at the time, one of the cars I've had in the past, and it had pretty low-profile tires, reasonably low profile, and no tire pressure monitor sensors or anything. It was old enough that it didn't have that. I didn't notice the flat tire because it was in the rear. Had it been in the front, I would have noticed the steering pulling, but the tire went flat in the back, and truth be told, I didn't even feel it. Someone pointed to me at a stoplight, like, hey, man, your tire looks low. And I was like, what? Really? And I get out, totally flat. And that's the only time that's ever happened to me. Now, this same study also found, by the way, that the average person waits about 9 days before having a check engine light, at least checked, taking it a place to having it checked and deciding if they want to fix it or if, you know what, they're going to go the route of the black tape. Yeah, the black tape route. Cover up that check engine light. makes it go right away. You know, with the prices of chips and stuff going up and less people wanting to get their cars fixed, maybe, the car scalpers are already doing this when it comes to, markups on cars. Maybe we could start marking up black tape, because then we can sell it for more. Fix all your car problems, stick it over the light, mark up the black tape, sell it for $10 a roll. It's special check engine light masking tape. And no, I'm kidding. We should not do that. That's terrible. Get that check engine light sorted out. I know. I've been one to say, yeah, I know the check engine light. I know what it's from. Screw it. I'm just going to keep driving. I've been one to do that. I've also been one who's has cars sometimes that are too old to have check engine lights. So simple problem. You can't have the check engine light turn on if you don't have one. So that's a great way to do that. No. So yeah, keep up on that car maintenance. At the end of the day, keeping up on your maintenance, obviously your oil changes, all the basic stuff, but your car's going to last you a long time if you take care of it. That's the thing. You see a lot of people are like, "Oh, my car's a piece of crap. It's terrible." And then they're the same people who haven't changed the oil in 15,000 miles, who drive around with all their tires low, who don't fix anything. And it's like, yeah, I get some people don't have money, but the fact is, too, you don't have to have a lot of money, generally speaking, to keep up on preventative maintenance. Obviously, major catastrophic things, engines, transmissions, sometimes they can fail at random, and you can really have nothing to contribute to it, and that sucks. So, such is car ownership. But, hey, there you go. Now, I do want to talk about NASA. All right, so NASA has is in the market here for a new lunar rover vehicle. And this came out during the 37th National Space Symposium, which is a huge conference of aerospace manufacturers, different technology firms. They get together. And guess what? This happens right here where I'm broadcasting from in Colorado Springs. People come from around the world. Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, all these big names in aerospace and engineering gather at the Broadmoor, which is here in the Springs, and it's a cool conference. It's really cool, and trust me, this relates to cars here, but it's really cool. It's usually many, many, many thousands of dollars to get into it. And when I was in high school, we had a student group go out to that event, and I got to go in for free with the students. I was part of the student group at the time, and that was really cool. That was very cool. As someone who doesn't work in the aerospace industry, at least get to say I've been to that conference, it's honestly really cool. But anyway, during the Space Symposium, and the Nissan and a company called Sierra Space announced that they are working on a crewed lunar terrain vehicle, not crude as in crass, as in crude as in it has people in it. But anyway, they're going to be working on, that. Basically, Nissan says, yeah, we build cars for Earth, so we're going to build cars for the moon now. Now, obviously, they said this is going to have to be an EV, which is tragic. I mean, come on. Yet another thing lost to the EV crowd. No, I'm just kidding. Obviously, it has to be an EV. There's no oxygen in space. This is the one area where I will concede to the crazed EV crowd of people, which is that, you know what, we can have EVs in space because running combustion engines, which usually require oxygen, last time I checked, does not work when there is an absence of oxygen and you're in the vacuum of space. So, you know what, fine. I'll let the EV nuts have the moon. They can have it. That's not to say it would be impossible to get a combustion engine running there. You would just have to truck in a huge tank of oxygen that you would feed into the intake, as well as the fuel. And I think that would be a point of diminishing returns. So, you know what? I'm not opposed to this. They say in due time, everything in this world will get LS swapped at some point, and I am sure lunar rovers are no exception to that rule. And one day when half of us are all living on the moon or something, some redneck in his garage on the moon is going to try to LS swap his rover, his lunar rover, and he's going to be trucking in oxygen. It's going to run on an LS. It's going to be great. Anyway, I digress. So Nissan basically is making a four-wheel drive lunar rover. They're designing it, at least. They've teased it with some 3D renders, and it's okay. It's going to be like any other lunar rover, just, made by Nissan. Now, the thing is, NASA hasn't committed to Nissan doing it, but they have said that they're shopping around, and obviously that means a bunch of companies now are going to start making designs to pitch to NASA because obviously they want to get that big government contract. Now, NASA is an American, part of the American government, and it would make sense. A lot of people here say, well, if NASA gets a lunar rover, it's got to be American. We don't want a Nissan. We don't want our American astronauts in Nissans. But the fact is, Nissan North America manufactures a great deal of their vehicles here in the United States. There's a whole manufacturing plant, if not several, that Nissan has here in the United States, and most of their U.S. market cars are actually made here because, that's one of those things that, is profitable for a company to do, and especially if you start selling in that volume, it makes more sense to make those vehicles here than ship them here, and it also helps with local jobs here, obviously. So and Toyota's been big at that too. Like the Tacoma I bought has it was made in Texas of all things, and it's a model that they don't sell outside of the U.S. The Toyota Tacoma, its closest international equivalent would be the Toyota Hilux, but it honestly shares no parts with the Hilux. They're completely different vehicles. And so obviously that's Toyota USA who makes that truck here. And the ironic thing too is if you get behind brand nationality, right, and you get a lot of folks who are very patriotic about their American vehicles, and Ford, America, Chevy, America, well, a lot of Chevys are made in Canada. A lot of Fords are made in Mexico. In fact, more F-150s are made in Mexico than Toyota makes trucks in the U.S. So which one's the more American vehicle? I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, who cares where it's made? As long as it's made well. That's what's important. And, I wouldn't go so far to say that 100%. It is important to support jobs in your country that you are at. If you have a, American company, it's important to, in my opinion, make to support jobs in your own country, obviously. But having said that, a Nissan lunar rover's not that far-fetched. And who knows, one day astronauts could very well be driving Datsuns. Is it rude to call Nissans Datsuns still? I mean, I know it's technically a different company. It has been for like 40 years. I know some older folks who still call them Datsuns. In true earnesty, they were there back in the day when Nissan was Datsun, and they just, hey, they still call them that. I think Datsun is also a cool name. I think Nissan, it's recognizable now. We know it, but Datsun it's a cool name. Come on. And the Datsun 280Z, oh my God. Oh, one of the most beautiful Japanese cars, in my opinion, ever made. Only second to the Toyota 2000 GT. Fight me on that one. For my listeners listening in other countries, our 280Z was the equivalent of the Nissan Fairlady Z from the 70s in Japan. And very, very cool. Striking car. The later ones from the 80s, the 280ZX, not so much. The 300ZX, very cool, but not striking and beautiful like that 280Z, 240Z, 260Z, 280Z, that whole lineup there. So anyway, I digress. Those aren't lunar rovers. This was a conversation about moon vehicles. Though again, hey, if we're living on the moon one day, I swear someone's going to do it. Someone's going to bring something up there, and it's going to be fun. And then they're going to LS swap it on the moon. What can I say? Now, hey, coming up, I got a lot of other interesting stuff. This is a packed show. Going to be talking, of course, about fuels and some other things, how Porsche is investing in e-fuels and what that means for owners of vehicles that burn things, likely you and me. I'm not making assumptions, but most likely. So, going to be talking about that. And, of course, having your car sounds coming up next.
And now for how things work with an engineer.
CVT transmissions.
And that was how things work with an engineer. For more of how things work, go to patreon.com/throttlewarrior.
Yeah, there we go. Rocking it for another segment of the Automotive ADHD show. Matt West here talking about cars. And those car sounds, by the way, courtesy of Colin Schroem. He sent those in recently after he sent in some of his other car sounds. Initially, some weeks back, he sent in his small block Chevy swapped Chevy S10. That is very cool. A V8 in a small truck. That is his other Chevy S10 with the V6 in it. Now, what's cool, Colin said he is 17 and he's already begun collecting cars. As a as a gearhead myself, well, that makes me happy to hear that. Keep rocking it, Colin. That's good stuff. Now, of course, if you would like to send your car sounds into the show, you can do that. Be entered for a chance to win the Automotive ADHD keychain, as well as a $25 gift certificate to your favorite parts store. By the way, I have one of those said keychains right here, and you can't see it because this is audio, but it does look cool. It tells people you have questionable tastes in podcasts, and it's practical. Helps you fish your keys out of your pocket. So all a win right there. I'm going to be pulling the drawing for that at the end of this month now for the next winner. Of course, last month's winner, Nikos. I do have your package on the way soon. I should have that tracking info to you as soon as I get it myself. So there you go. All good stuff. You can send those car sounds in on the Facebook page, facebook.com/automotiveadhd, or you can email me, Matt@throttlewarrior.com. Alternatively, too, if you want to write your or send in your car sounds on a flash drive taped to a, I don't know, maybe a set of Fortunato 500 coilovers, I suppose you could do that, too. I wouldn't say no if you did that. So, anyway, make sure those coilovers, by the way, are for a Honda S2000. Just throwing that out there. You could also send the 510 coilovers as well, but I'll take either. Now, hey, so I want to talk about fuels here because fuel is the thing that makes these fun cars go around and makes them work. And here's a question, when is the best time to fill up with gas? If you are to believe urban legend, the myth is that you should fill up early in the morning because it is colder out. And therefore, because the fuel is colder, it is more dense, and that you get more money you get more fuel for the same amount of money as opposed to filling up later in the day. Now, at a glance, you could say, yeah, that kind of makes sense. I could see how that would work. And, it turns out recently, according to Consumer Reports and some other sources, that it doesn't work that way. And you've also probably heard that it makes, the same myth has also been kind of twisted into also relating to filling up going into snowstorms, because again, the gas is colder before the storm as opposed to in the nice weather before the storm. And again, they're saying that experts say that this is not the case. So, and the reason for this, what Consumer Reports found is that the gas, because it's stored underground at gas stations in big fuel tanks, it's deep enough underground. The temperature there is fairly consistent. It doesn't change a whole lot underground. It's not that far down, but it is far enough that on a hot day that's 100 degrees versus on a cold day that's 30 degrees, talking Fahrenheit here, freezing versus, 100 degrees and it's hot. It doesn't make that big of a difference in the temperature of the gasoline. And they found that gasoline only increased from the ground to the tank 60 to 75 degrees was the Fahrenheit again was the difference. And that change in temperature in the gasoline only yielded, so from 60 degrees to 75 degrees, that only yielded a 1% increase in volume in the gasoline. So that is what? Even in today's gas prices, that is mere cents on the dollar that you're saving by filling up really early in the morning or in the cold, or if you're going out of your way in the morning to then go fill up at a gas station, you might actually burn more gas going to that gas station, going out of your way for it, than you would if you just filled up somewhere on your way. So that is kind of debunking a little bit of this myth. And, it's one of those things that, it's a myth. It's been around probably as long as there's been fuel. Definitely since the fuel crisis in the 1970s, I think people started really trying to figure out how they could save every penny gasoline-wise. And I suppose maybe you're saving a penny or two. But, I mean, if we're looking at 1% difference, 1% of a gallon, and say, okay, let's do some quick math. 1% of a gallon, if your gallon was $1 a gallon, which wouldn't that be nice, right? Wouldn't that be nice? If it was $1 a gallon, that would be 1 cent. If it's $5 a gallon, that's 5 cents. So you're saving 5 cents. You're saving a nickel. And not a lot of money. Probably burning more than a nickel in gas just to go out of your way to do it. So basically, the best time to fill up is all the time. That's the answer, basically. All the time. It's always a good time to get gas. It's just like, it's always a good time to do burnouts. It's always a good time to get fuel to do those burnouts. So, there you go. Now, that also tees into another thing here. That segues into another topic, which is e-fuels. And e-fuels are really interesting. And I've been looking into this lately. Every now and then I just get a random kick to start looking up stuff. That's why on a previous show, I was just laying in bed and I'm like, can you buy gasoline in bulk? Let me go down the rabbit hole and go research this. And I did that. And that's a show. And you can find that in the podcast feed. And not to spoil it, there's different reasons why you would want to buy gas in bulk, but it's not necessarily cost effective to always do so. But I'm not going to encourage you or discourage you from doing that. Just, go listen to that show. Anyway, so e-fuels are really interesting because Porsche has said that they are committed to making e-fuels. Presumably, they've said they're also committed to making electric cars, but presumably they're wanting to also support the fun stuff, sell the gas stuff next to the electric stuff, and or also have something to support some of their older models that still exist. As more governments do push for electrification, which I think is a huge, huge mistake. And I've said it time and time again on this show. I'm not opposed to electric cars. I'm not an electric car hater. I think they're a lot of fun. But I'm opposed to regulation that is forcing one technology over another and not letting free markets and, as technology develops and as consumers buy what they want, not letting free markets decide it, saying arbitrarily, no, as a government, we've decided this is the best technology. And then obviously, discouraging manufacturers from researching other technologies that might be better, like e-fuels. So what is an e-fuel? I keep throwing that term around. And e-fuels are synthetic combustion fuels that are produced with the help of electricity, taking that from renewable things. They take carbon, they take CO2 from the atmosphere, and they take hydrogen from water through the process of electrolysis, which is using electric current to break water down into its component parts, hydrogen and oxygen. And you can actually do this at home, by the way, with some plates and a battery, and you can make your own hydrogen. Really cool. If you ever are bored, you want something to do, you want to make some hydrogen, because you can. I did this in high school. True story. I did a high school project on it and made some hydrogen and then blew up my hydrogen generator by accident. But what can I say? Again, simple process. Plates that go into water, you apply a current to those plates, and then you somehow trap the gases coming off of that. And that gas is going to be primarily oxygen and primarily hydrogen. And there's going to be some other stuff in there, chlorine and things like that if it's chlorinated water. Also, chlorine gas. You want to avoid that. Point is, you can do this, and with the right setup, you can do it really effectively and really safely. And so what they do to make this e-fuel is they use electricity and they pull hydrogen out of water. And then what they do is they have developed a method which is very technical, and I even understand it very loosely, but they have developed a method for combining that hydrogen into a liquid state with liquid CO2. And they basically pressurize the CO2 to a very, very high degree until, I guess, it turns into a liquid, it condenses into a liquid. And I'm sure there's a lot more science behind this than I'm explaining here, but I'm just kind of throwing out the general concept. So they get a liquid from that, and then they're able to combine that with the hydrogen as well as some other things to make a liquid fuel that is combustible in the same way gasoline is. And this liquid fuel can be used to as a replacement for gasoline. They can also do e-diesel and some other stuff. And the idea is it's taking things that are readily available, right? A lot of the electric car fanatics, want that carbon zero, net zero emissions, they want that to be green. Well, this is really, really efficient because you can get the electricity to make the hydrogen from the water from renewable energy. You can also pull the CO2 from the atmosphere with, again, renewable energy. And the cool thing is when this stuff burns, it doesn't have nearly as many hydrocarbons and harmful things as regular gasoline does. So it's a lot kinder to the environment as well when you burn it, and it just breaks down into its component parts, some separate parts of CO2 and some unburnt hydrogen and oxygen and stuff. So that's really cool. Now you got to be thinking, well, that's got to be really expensive to make. And it is expensive right now because the places that can make this stuff, which they do exist, this stuff it's not a theoretical thing. It does actually exist in some areas. It's just the places that make this right now are very small in comparison to, oil refineries that make gasoline, obviously. So obviously, if you were to scale this up and have more production of it, the cost would go down. Now, there's an interesting thing. There's a thing called the E-Fuel Alliance, and you can look up some of these stats as well that I'm pulling from efuelalliance.eu, and they claim that the e-fuel, by the way, which is cool, can actually cost somewhere around 1.6 euros to €2, which in American speak, that's like $1.75. And it could cost that amount with the right amount of support and distribution to this to offset the costs. Obviously, if you have a large volume of it, you can sell it for fairly cheap. And they say that it can also be mixed with regular gasoline, so they can do like we do with ethanol. You buy E85, that's 85% ethanol, 15% gasoline. They can do the same thing. So this is a very, very rough overview of what this stuff is, but this is the kind of cool new innovation that I believe gets stifled. Innovation in fuels like this gets stifled when governments arbitrarily, restrict you to one technology. Say, oh, we've decided electric is the best. Well, this e-fuel stuff looks really sustainable to produce. It can be used in existing powertrains. You can retrofit existing vehicles to run it in the same way you can run E85 ethanol in existing fuels or existing vehicles. And come on, I've got my 1986 Corolla running on ethanol right now. It's a thing you can do as a DIY hobbyist, even yourself. So, not saying this is ethanol, but I'm just saying for comparison's sake. And this has got enough backing on it now, though, that Porsche has recently announced that they are going to be investing in this as well. And they are investing in this in a substantial quantity, think $75 million. That they're investing into a company that produces these e-fuels, and which is very cool. Now, this company, it's called Innovative or Highly Innovative Fuels Global. Yes, I wonder what they do. They are highly innovative with fuels. I guess that's in their name. And Porsche's acquiring 12.5% of that company to have this stuff made. Now, one of their major plants where they are already producing e-fuels is in Chile, and they're going to be expanding that. So, here the thing is, I'm sure electric vehicles are definitely coming. It's a technology that is very appealing in a lot of ways. For instance, I see no reason why courier vehicles, mail trucks, delivering mail and packages, and those vehicles stop every 10 yards. Like, why on earth aren't those electric yet to me? That's one of those things. Our United States Postal Service has been in the market for a new mail truck, and they have gone with a gas option again. And again, I'm a diehard gearhead. I love things that burn gas. I love things that make noise when you drive them. I love manual transmissions. So these are all things I love, right? And but when it comes to like a mail truck that drives 10 feet, puts some letters in a mailbox, drives another 10 feet, stops, 10 feet, stops, does that literally all day, I see no reason why that shouldn't be an electric vehicle and why that wouldn't be more efficient as an electric vehicle. So obviously, yeah, we're going to see more electric cars, but are we going to see a complete changeover to electric? Unless governments, again, in my opinion, wrongly mandate this. I think it's very feasible that, like for instance, what Porsche is doing, they want to be able to support platforms and cars that they already have, and they're using this e-fuel stuff, which is cool. And I hope to see more support in this, and I hope to see more legislators take a second look at this and say, sure, we like this electric car idea, but the fact is, virtually every car on the road right now, like electric cars only make up like 13% of the cars in the world. So it's a small portion. It's like, well, we have all these cars. The more efficient thing to do is keep existing vehicles on the road instead of making new vehicles. The climate, damaging gases that are produced when you make the cars it's already come and gone in a long way sense for older cars. So, it makes more sense, and several studies have backed this up, that keeping older cars on the road, if you're really trying to be eco-friendly, yeah, I love the planet, right? If you're trying to be eco-friendly, keeping old crap cars on the road, even though they might be a little less fuel efficient, as long as you're keeping them in good maintenance, they're not burning too much fuel, they're not leaking oil out everywhere and cooling everywhere, that's actually being more environmentally friendly than buying a $100,000 EV. So, having said that, e-fuels, it's really cool. I like to see that Porsche is backing this. Because again, I mean, once you get Porsche backing it, Porsche makes cool stuff. And they want to see their cars that they're already making. Obviously, they need to be driven. They can't sell service and stuff for cars that aren't on the road anymore just because, we just got to abandon all the gas ones. That's not going to happen. Like, this is not, in 20, 30 years, I don't think this is going to be like the change from tube TVs to, LCD TVs, where suddenly, very quickly overnight, everyone was throwing, old-style tube TVs out on the street. Just garbage. I mean, there's so many cars in the world, so much infrastructure already in place that it has to be a gradual change, if anything. And again, I don't think it's going to necessarily be a 100% change for electric. I mean, these, you look at gas cars, you look at the Model Ts, for instance. 100-year-old Model Ts are still on the road now. Is it feasible to think that a Kia Sorento is going to be on the road in 100 years? Probably not. Probably not. But the cool stuff, the fun stuff, the Porsches, the then in 100 years collectible Acura Integras, right, are going to be, going across auction floors for millions. Who knows? I don't know. I just like to drive my stuff. I'm not in it for all the big money, obviously. But obviously these e-fuels are a part of driving stuff. So, yeah, more on this. As we hear more stuff about this, of course, you'll hear about it here first. You'll get the updates on it here. Now, I got more stuff to talk about. Oh, man, this show is loaded. This is, I'm kind of doing some stuff as the podcast exclusive here. I can get away with being a little more long form on the podcast here than I can on the radio show. On the radio show, I got to be pretty tight, pretty concise, do it within a specific time, hit the times correctly. But here, you know what? Let's just chat about cars. I got the next thing, which is the most useless car feature has officially been killed off by the chip shortage, and I'm not sorry. I'm glad to see it gone. What is it? I'll tell you about it in just a minute.
Every day, thousands go without the ability to buy necessary and life-saving parts. Parts like turbos, coilovers, and wheels.
I'm Steve, turbocharged BRZ. It doesn't run because I can play with my connecting rod through the hole in my block.
Project cars sit unfinished, waiting for parts, collecting dust.
My name is Todd, and I bought a rotary.
It's okay, bro. We'll swap it.
But no more. You, yes you, can make a difference. For as little as $5 per month, you can put an end to Project Cars suffering and support your favorite podcast. Patreon.com/Throttle Warrior. Donate now and receive special perks. Sponsored by Autoholics Anonymous and the Speed Council.
We go. That is Alex's S13 hatch with a, he says, fairly stock SR20, just sending it. Lots of fun there. Shout out to Alex for that, as well as his buddy, New Long Lore, for sending that to me on the Automotive ADHD Facebook page. I guess if I draw either of you in the for the winning of the keychain and stuff, I guess both of you will have to get a keychain and a gift card, since that was a team effort sending it in. I don't know. Hey, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Could be pretty cool, though. Now, one thing I want to get to here in this final segment of the show is the most recent piece of technology to get killed off mercilessly by the chip shortage. As any of us know, the chip shortage has been pretty prevalent in the automotive industry now for a while. It's nothing new. And manufacturers have had to do all sorts of different things in order to curb said shortage. For instance, Volkswagen had to shift their production methods from being the, quote, just-in-time method, where they receive parts and their supply chain, it all comes in at the very second it's needed. Therefore, they don't need factory space and storage space for lots of parts. It just comes in. It just happens. And they had to start stockpiling stuff because that wasn't happening, and it was throwing a metaphorical wrench into the production line and stopping things that shouldn't have been stopped. So they had to figure out a way around that, kind of go back to some more traditional means. Other manufacturers have been removing features from their cars in order to keep them moving. Instead of, we need a power seat module, but we don't have the chips to make it. Instead of holding up, again, the whole production line and saying, well, we just got to wait to sell these cars to finish them, they've just been putting manual seats in, getting the cars out, getting them onto the showroom floor, and then just selling them, obviously. And so, that's been one of the primary ways manufacturers have been keeping production rolling. Because, again, you can't just stop these production lines and expect things to go well, or expect to resume production and not lose jobs and all that stuff and not lose sales. And in a market where used cars are even more used and, new cars are even more desirable, got to keep that stuff rolling. So the latest thing, though, to get canceled, you could say, because of this, is the Ford Bronco's factory GPS system. Yeah, good riddance. Not saying it was a terrible system, but I think, and this sentiment has been echoed by automotive journalists in the industry for a while, I think that the factory navigation systems in cars are ridiculous. They're pointless, they are redundant, and they are expensive, and they're also clunky. All of these reasons. I mean, since when have you had a better experience with the factory navigation than you have had with Google Maps, Apple Maps, Waze, all of the above? And the fact is that software designers and software engineers working at Apple, Google, and big tech companies, that's their primary job, whereas auto manufacturers either are doing the software engineering in-house or they're having to outsource to other people, and they don't have a dedicated staff always working on that 24/7, in the same, not at least, I'm sure they have staff on, like full payroll, obviously, but not in the same capacity that Google does, and not in the same way that Apple does. I mean, they just can't. They're a car company, and the others, Apple and Google are technology companies. That's all they do. So the fact is, it's like, how do I get my Apple Maps there? Well, virtually every new car has Apple CarPlay integrated with it, has Google Maps integration as well, so Android Auto. And my recent acquisition, which I've mentioned before, my 2012 Tacoma, it's a 2012, but the previous owner put in a really nice head unit that has a touch screen and that has integration with CarPlay and Android Auto. And it's seamless. It is a phenomenally good, well-designed system. And so the Ford Bronco also, though, the fact that it's losing its factory GPS and navigation system, again, what a tragedy, what a loss. The fact is that factory system costs $695 as a subscription for, I believe, every 3 years. You have to pay a $695, $700 subscription to continue using the factory navigation in the vehicle. And why would you pay, in my opinion? I've talked at length about how subscription services and mechanical features in cars, or even technology features, are ridiculous. You bought the car, you should be able to continue using it. And a subscription service for the GPS, I mean, it's one of those things, too, that'll be super dated in a while. And it may even, in the future, in years, maybe not even that far out, 10 years, it may go by the way of the AT&T 3G network shutdown, which happened earlier this year, which made a lot of features in a lot of cars that aren't even that old, 2010 and up models, even as models as late as like 2018, 2019. It made the 3G cellular units in the infotainment systems completely useless, like 100% useless. Either it's completely bricked and you can't use it, or you have to take it to the dealer and usually pay to have it upgraded through some sort of weird workaround to the existing network now. So what's to say, these factory navigation systems don't go that route? What's to say the GPS signals and the satellites in the sky in orbit, aren't changed to a different system, or, gone out of commission, or heaven forbid a space rock hits them and the company decides that it's not worth sending another one up. Like all that stuff can happen and basically brick your navigation system in your Bronco, for instance, or any car. And look at factory navigation systems in cars from 10 years ago. They're terrible. Half of them don't work. Half of them are clunky. They're terrible. They don't do anything well. At that point, again, you're better off pulling the smartphone out of your pocket. Now, what's interesting about this is, according to a recent survey, the cell phone ownership has gone up substantially in the past decade, which, I mean, that's to no surprise, because obviously more people have purchased cell phones. So according to a study, they found that a large portion of Americans, at least 97% of Americans, now own a cell phone of some kind. And of those Americans, 85% of them own smartphones. And if you have a smartphone, any sort of smartphone, you are pretty much good to go when it comes to, you know, pairing up with your Android Auto system, your Apple CarPlay in your vehicle. And the cool thing with those systems is those can be integrated into aftermarket head units, and you can change that over time. Like the head unit in my Tacoma has definitely got more than 10 years of life in it, absolutely. And you know what? Who knows? Maybe another smartphone manufacturer comes out, or maybe Apple and Google do things differently, and I can just go get another aftermarket head unit that supports the newest stuff, plug it into my dash, boom, I'm good to go. So, you know, just swap out the head unit, couple $100. I've now brought new technology to an old vehicle. So that's why I don't think that it's a tragedy that Ford is cutting out its navigation system in the Broncos, for instance. Now, obviously, the Broncos, I should have clarified this earlier, they still have the center screen, so you wouldn't be able to swap it out for necessarily another one. You still have the center screen, you still have CarPlay, you still have Android Auto, you still have the whole infotainment system, just sans the GPS and maps feature, which I have a feeling a very few number of owners were actually using, and the people who have it probably just didn't notice when they bought the Bronco. You know, they just probably didn't notice that, oh, there's a $695 charge that the dealer put on there, and I wasn't paying attention to the itemized, option sheet and all that stuff, and I guess I'm stuck with it. It's rolled into the loan or whatever. So, that's one of those things. I don't feel like a lot of people earnestly, truly were looking at the option sheet saying, okay, I really want the factory navigation system because I want that integrated factory experience. No one has ever said in the history of the world, I'd bet money on this, no one has ever said that the factory Ford navigation or the factory Toyota navigation, doesn't matter what brand, but that factory navigation is better than Google or Apple Maps. I don't think anyone has ever once said that. And if you have, please contact me. Let me know. We'll get you on the show, and we'll find out why you say that, because I have never had an experience where it's better. And again, with the modern technology we have in the dashboards of cars now, it's not like I even have to think about pairing my cell phone to it. Maybe there's an initial setup, but once it's good to go, you get in, my phone's in my pocket. I don't even care. I don't even notice. I just go to the infotainment system on the car and boom, there's my maps, my navigation. It's got music. It's got a good podcasts. Like, I don't know, you can maybe play this podcast on there. But my point is, it's all integrated. It's really well done. So I would say you let the software manufacturers do the software bit and let the car manufacturers do what they do, which is make great cars. I think it's a pretty good compromise there. So, again, hey, you know what? If you got a different opinion than me, that's what the Automotive ADHD Facebook page is for. You can share that there. Share it to your heart's content. And then we'll talk about it here on the show. So that's a great thing about this show. You can interact with the show. I like playing your car sounds here. If you want to send those in, you can do that. Be entered for a chance to win the $25 gift certificate, the keychain, all of the good stuff. Now, I want to thank you for joining me on this perhaps slightly longer than usual version of the show. I mean, hey, it's a podcast. I can get away with what I want here. It's my podcast. You know what? I think it's good. I think it's fine. And of course, you can subscribe to said podcast wherever fine podcasts and, this one are downloaded. And I will see you same time, same place next week when I race Vin Diesel to see whose transmission has more gears. Yeah, that'll be a good one. I'll see you then.